Welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining here at Unapologetic Progressive. Once again, we're brought to you by Dubby Energy. Click the link in the description below to save 10% at checkout. Now let's look at this big bogus bill of Donald Trump's, right? Get it here. It adds 3.3 trillion to the debt. There's $4 trillion in tax cuts. Roughly 12 million people. It's actually been revised up to around 17.6 million people will lose their health care coverage. There's a almost $1 trillion Medicaid cut. There's $170 billion to Medicare ACA cuts. Food assistance is cut by $285 billion. Energy credits have been gotten rid of entirely, saving $488 billion. But all that does is hurt those people that have been using subsidies in order to put things like, solar panels on their homes so they can save a little bit of money on their electric bills with the skyrocketing electric bills. And they've cut 52 million from Planned Parenthood. Now, let's talk about a few of these things, and then we'll get to the tax cuts and the debt being added in a minute. Roughly 17 million Americans will lose their health care coverage between Medicare, Medicaid, and the ACA. Now, to some people, that may not seem like a lot. But when you consider the fact that we already have some 30 or 40 million people that are uninsured, adding another 17 million to that just makes the problems even worse. And buried in those cuts to Medicare, Medicaid, the ACA, are cuts to rural hospitals and research for things like childhood cancer. And people are okay with that. And I don't understand how you're okay with any of that. On food stamps, they made it to where people can't count children as dependents over the age of 6. You can't count things like the internet as a bill in order to get food stamps. You used to be able to take all your bills, your lights, your internet, your, everything, and they would take that into account in what you got for food stamps. And now you're going to see families with children losing over almost half, if not more, of their food stamp allotment. Like, what are we doing? Now, of course, they made cuts to food stamps, and they made cuts to Planned Parenthood, of course, because they hate anything that helps people. The cruelty is the point. They want people to be scared. They want people to be dying and dying because they can't get an ambulance within a proper amount of time to save them from a stroke or a heart attack. If you live off in rural Alabama, for example, I've already heard that there's 4 or 5 rural hospitals already closing in your state. And if that's the case, and it's going to be exacerbated by this bill, you're going to have nowhere to go. You're going to have to go to one of the big cities if you want an ambulance. And what happens if you're 2 hours away from there? That's right, you're dead. Your loved one. You just have to sit there and watch them die. And not only is that going to be terrible for those people, it's going to be traumatizing, knowing that they can do nothing to help their loved ones. That's why we were funding rural hospitals. That's why we had them being built across the country. So people in rural areas had access to at least adequate health care. Now you're going to get rid of their Medicare, Medicaid, and other insurance and take away the hospitals. Let's talk about if you even get to the hospital in one of the bigger cities, those places are going to be overrun now because they're not getting enough money to be fully staffed, most of them. And these people aren't going to be able to care for you either, even if you get there. Like, what are we doing? Is this the America we want? Do we really want an America where the working class gets spit on every step of the way? Or do we want to want an America where the American worker, the American working class is the backbone of this country and respected as the backbone of the country that it is? Because the working class and the working poor run this country. If it wasn't for the working poor and the other working class people in America, this country would die. You wouldn't have billionaires and millionaires making money off these people. They wouldn't be making any money if it wasn't for the American worker. And it's time we stand up for the American worker. It's time we fight for the American worker. I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. It is time to stand up and fight for the American worker. This bill does not do that. Remember all that talk of things like, I don't know, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime? Well, that's not happening. That's not in the bill. The only thing in the bill is a tax credit that you may be eligible for. There's no guarantee you're eligible for them, but you may be eligible, but you're not going to see your weekly paychecks go up. And I don't even know if the tax credit made it into the final bill or not. But this is the America we have right now. This is what Americans voted for. If you're one of those conservatives that voted for this and you're yucking it up about this stuff, let's be very clear. This is going to affect you more than most people. For example, conservatives, for the most part, live more in more rural areas, further away from hospitals, and your rural hospitals are going to close. This is going to affect you. This is going to affect your mothers, your fathers, your grandparents. The cuts to Medicare and Medicaid are going to cause people you love to die. And if those things don't bother you, then I have no way to help you. This channel has spent 2 years railing against Project 2025. And the cuts in this bill are 100% out of Project 2025. Doesn't matter how you look at it. You know? So, I don't know what to tell people out there right now. I'm completely heartbroken that this bill passed. I'm so angry at the 5 Republicans that said they weren't going to vote for the bill, who decided to vote for the bill. Why? Because they got autographed Trump hats at the White House yesterday, so they flipped their votes. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? This whole world was just flushed down, this whole country was just flushed down the toilet because 5 Republicans got signed Trump hats. The whole point of this bill is tax cuts, right? So they can add $3.3 trillion to our national debt over the next decade. They are giving billionaires a $4 trillion tax cut over the next 10 years and making them permanent for that time frame. Meanwhile, nobody else gets a tax cut, just the billionaires, top 10%. And that's just how it is, right? And I don't understand it. I really don't. I don't want to understand it because all I know is this is cruelty. You're going to starve Americans? Starve American children at that? How pro-life of you. I hope every single one of you MAGA supporters out there get what you voted for. I hope your rural hospital closes. I hope that you relied on food stamps and now you lose half of it. Because I warned you. Millions of us warned you every single day of the dangers of Project 2025, and you went ahead and voted for it because of your bigotry. You let the fact that you hated immigrants and trans people dictate who you voted for. You let Donald Trump scare you about the other. And you bought it hook, line, and sinker, and here we are. As of now, America is drowning. America is drowning. That's all there is to it. This is the death knell of the American working class. Republicans have already decimated the middle class and the working class. And now they've basically destroyed it. If this bill goes to fruition all the way through, and there's no changes made over the next few years to change any bits of it, all you're going to see is billionaires and millionaires and people that can't survive. This is a capitalist hellscape. This is exactly what the capitalist supporters always tell me, have told me ever since I was a child, would happen if we became a socialist nation. But it's happening in a capitalist system. Make it make sense, people. Anyways, thanks for watching. I'll see you down the road.